The Luncheon on the Grass by Édouard Manet. Introduction. Imagine walking into the most prestigious art exhibition in Paris in 1863 and stopping dead in your tracks, not because of admiration, but because of sheer disbelief. That is exactly what happened when Édouard Manet unveiled Le Déjeuner sur l'herbe, Luncheon on the Grass. The painting caused a scandal that reverberated across the entire art world, and yet today it is considered one of the most pivotal works in the history of Western art. But why? What is it about this seemingly simple picnic scene that changed everything? In this video, we are going to explore not only the painting itself, its composition, its radical choices, and its hidden meanings, but also the life of the extraordinary man who created it. The artist, Édouard Manet. Édouard Manet was born on January 23, 1832 in Paris, into a wealthy and respectable bourgeois family. His father was a senior official in the Ministry of Justice, and the family expected young Édouard to follow a similarly distinguished path. He had other ideas. After a brief and unenthusiastic stint as a naval cadet, a career detour his father had insisted upon, Manet returned to Paris and threw himself into painting. He studied under the academic master Thomas Couture for 6 years, but he was never content simply to replicate the past. He traveled to the great museums of Italy, Germany, and the Netherlands, absorbing the works of Titian, Velázquez, and Rembrandt. He did not imitate them, he interrogated them. Manet occupied a unique and often uncomfortable position in 19th century art. He was neither a pure academic painter nor quite an impressionist, though he is frequently grouped with the Impressionists and was a close friend of Monet, Degas, and Berthe Morisot. He was a bridge, a transitional figure who dismantled the old rules while refusing to fully embrace the new ones. That ambiguity made him controversial in his lifetime and endlessly fascinating to us today. He died in 1883 at the age of 51, leaving behind a body of work that would quietly detonate beneath the foundations of modern art. The painting. First impressions. Let us turn now to the painting itself. Luncheon on the Grass is a large-scale oil on canvas, measuring roughly 2 meters by 2.5 meters. It depicts 4 figures in a woodland clearing beside a stream. In the foreground, 2 men dressed in contemporary 19th century clothing sit casually on the grass alongside a completely nude woman, who turns and gazes directly out at the viewer with absolute calm and composure. In the middle ground, a second lightly clothed woman wades in the shallow water behind them. Scattered around the seated group are a basket of fruit, a round loaf of bread, and discarded items of clothing. On the surface, it sounds almost pastoral, a pleasant outdoor gathering, and yet when it was first exhibited, it caused outrage. Napoleon III himself reportedly called it an affront to modesty. So what made it so explosive? The scandal, why it shocked. To understand the scandal, you need to understand the context. The painting was rejected by the official Paris Salon in 1863, the most powerful art institution in France. However, that same year, Napoleon III decreed that the rejected works should be shown in a parallel exhibition, the so-called Salon des Refusés, or Salon of the Refused. Manet's painting was shown there, and it became the centerpiece of public controversy. The nudity itself was not the problem. The Salon regularly accepted paintings of nude women, nymphs bathing, goddesses reclining, allegorical figures of all kinds. The nude female body was entirely acceptable, provided it was safely distanced in mythology, allegory, or antiquity. What disturbed the public was the combination of the nude with the contemporary. The 2 men are not gods or satyrs. They are wearing modern Parisian clothes, the kind of suit a banker or a lawyer might wear. The woman is not Venus. She is plainly, matter-of-factly naked, and she is looking directly at you. There is no mythological excuse. There is no allegorical veil. She simply is what she is, and she refuses to pretend otherwise. That directness, that refusal of the traditional fig leaf of allegory, was radical. Manet was essentially exposing the hypocrisy of the Salon standards. Nudity is fine, as long as we can all pretend it isn't really happening. He stripped away the pretense and left the viewer with no place to hide. Composition and artistic choices. Beyond the scandal, the painting is a masterclass in deliberate artistic subversion. Manet borrowed its triangular compositional arrangement directly from a Renaissance engraving by Marcantonio Raimondi, based on a design by Raphael. The three figures in the foreground echo the postures of river gods in that classical work almost exactly. Manet was not hiding this source. He was pointing to it. He was saying, here is your respectable classical tradition, and here is what it looks like when I bring it into the present. The painting also breaks conspicuously with academic rules of spatial depth and lighting. The background figure of the waiting woman is painted too large relative to her position. She seems to float, suspended in an ambiguous middle distance that refuses to obey the laws of perspective. The light falls flatly on the figures, without the dramatic chiaroscuro that academic painters use to give their canvases a sense of three-dimensional weight. Manet flattens everything, pressing the scene toward the picture plane, almost like a photograph or a modern poster. This flatness is not a failure of technique. It is a statement. Manet was among the first painters to acknowledge that a painting is, above all else, a flat surface covered in paint, not a window onto another world, but an object in its own right. That simple shift in thinking would eventually lead straight to Cézanne, to Cubism, to abstraction. Legacy. The legacy of Luncheon on the Grass is immense. It influenced generations of artists, from Claude Monet, who painted his own outdoor version in homage, to Pablo Picasso, who produced over 140 interpretations and variations of it. The painting hangs today in the Musée d'Orsay in Paris, visited by millions each year. But perhaps its most important legacy is conceptual. Manet demonstrated that great art does not have to be comfortable. It does not have to reassure. It is allowed, perhaps even obligated, to unsettle, to question, to stare back. That woman in the clearing is not asking for your approval. She is simply there, looking at you, waiting to see what you will do with your discomfort. More than 160 years later, she is still waiting, and that perhaps is exactly what makes this painting timeless. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this analysis, please like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments which painting you would like us to explore next.